The morning light on Serenitas Prime was always perfect. Never too bright, never too dim. The weather control systems made sure of that. Taemin Park sat in his usual spot near the back of the classroom, watching his classmates file in for Professor Velthari's xenobiology lecture. Sora Kim took the seat next to him, dropping her data pad on the smooth white desk. "Ready for another exciting lesson about plant life on boring planets?" she whispered with a small smile. Taemin shrugged. "Better than quantum mechanics with Professor Zatik yesterday. I still don't understand how his math works." Around them, students from dozens of different worlds found their seats. Kix, the insectoid from the Hive Collective, clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter at something his friend said. Orm, a gaseous being in a containment suit, floated gently above his chair. The ethereal twins from Christos Prime sat, perfectly still, their translucent bodies catching the light. Everyone got along well enough. That was the point of the Galactic Education Consortium. Bring young beings from different worlds together, learn about each other, build peace through understanding. It sounded good on paper. Taemin noticed things others missed, like how the maintenance worker who had been fixing the air vents for 3 days kept looking at the students instead of his work, or how the security guards had been doing more patrols lately, or how some of his classmates still stepped back a little when he walked past. Humans were new to galactic society, only 50 years since first contact. Most species had evolved on garden worlds, places with gentle weather, plenty of food, and few dangerous predators. Earth was different. Earth was what they called a death world. High gravity, extreme weather, and everything trying to kill everything else. It made humans different too. Professor Velthari entered the room, her crystalline body chiming softly as she moved. The ethereal professor was ancient by human standards, maybe 300 years old. Her species aged slowly and thought deeply about everything. "Good morning, class," she said, her voice like wind chimes. "Today we will discuss evolutionary adaptation in hostile environments." Hyunwoo Lee, sitting 2 rows up, turned back to give Taemin a knowing look. Another lecture that would probably focus on how most species had it easy compared to humans. Professor Velthari activated the holographic display. Images of different worlds appeared in the air above her desk. Evolution shapes all life. Each world presents challenges. Life finds ways to survive. A garden world appeared first. Rolling green hills, blue skies, gentle streams. Christos Prime, homeworld of the ethereals. Stable climate for millions of years. Rich in resources. Few natural disasters. The ethereal students sat up straighter, proud of their peaceful homeworld. This led to certain adaptations, the professor continued. Enhanced mental abilities, sensitivity to energy fields, long lifespans for deep thinking. Physical strength was not necessary. Next came Hive World Beta, covered in geometric structures and buzzing with activity. The collective worlds, abundant food sources, cooperative species, specialization within the hive structure. Kix's antennae twitched happily. And then, Professor Velthari paused. "We have the death worlds." The display changed to show Earth, blue oceans, white clouds, and green continents that looked peaceful from space. But Taemin knew better. So did every other human in the galaxy. Earth. Unstable weather patterns, frequent natural disasters, gravity 1.3 times galactic standard, and the professor's voice grew softer. Predators. Many, many predators. Images flashed across the display. Saber-toothed cats, giant bears, pack-hunting wolves, crocodiles, sharks, poisonous snakes and spiders. Even the plants could be deadly. Some students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The images were just recordings, but they still triggered instinctive fear responses. This environment created different adaptations, Professor Velthari explained. Enhanced bone density for high gravity, improved reflexes for avoiding danger, increased adrenaline production for fight-or-flight responses, and perhaps most importantly, Winoi paused, looking directly at the human students, psychological resilience, the ability to function under extreme stress. to make decisions when afraid, to protect others even at personal risk. Taemin felt the familiar weight of other students' stares. They weren't mean about it. Most of them were just curious. But it was still uncomfortable being the subject of constant study. Many species find human behavior confusing. The professor continued. Why would someone risk their life for a stranger? Why choose to fight when fleeing is safer? Why continue trying when success seems impossible? A gaseous student raised one of his tentacle-like appendages. Professor, is it true that humans evolved from hunters? Not exactly, Orm. Humans were persistence hunters. They would chase prey for many kilometers until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. They didn't give up. Ever. That got some nervous chittering from the insectoid students. The idea of being chased until exhaustion was their species' worst nightmare. Sora leaned over to whisper, "She makes us sound scary." "Maybe we are," Taemin whispered back. Professor Velthari continued the lecture, moving on to other topics. Adaptation to different atmospheres. How some species could survive in pure methane while others needed specific gas mixtures. How radiation affected development on certain worlds. But Taemin wasn't really listening anymore. Something felt wrong. The maintenance worker was gone from the vents, but his tools were still there. Security guards kept walking past the windows, more often than usual, and there was a sound in the distance. Very faint, but getting closer. Something large was moving through the academy's corridors. Taemin's enhanced hearing, evolved from ancestors who had to detect approaching predators, picked up the sound clearly. Heavy footsteps, claws on metal flooring, and something else. Something that made his spine tingle with ancient warning signals, the sound of something hunting. He looked around the classroom. Nobody else seemed to notice. Their species had evolved in safe environments. They didn't have the same early warning systems that humans did. The sound was getting closer. Professor Velthari was still talking about atmospheric adaptation when the building's emergency alarm started to wail. The alarm made everyone freeze. Professor Velthari's crystalline body flickered between colors, showing her confusion. Emergency drills weren't scheduled for today. Perhaps a system malfunction, she said, her voice still calm. Please remain seated while I contact security. But Taemin was already standing. The sound in the corridors had stopped, but that made it worse. Whatever was out there was now being quiet on purpose. Predators did that when they were getting ready to strike. Something's wrong, he said. Sora looked up at him. It's just a drill, Taemin. Sit down. No. Listen. The classroom fell quiet. 43 students from different worlds, all straining to hear what the human had detected. Most of them heard nothing unusual. Their species had evolved in safe environments where listening for danger wasn't necessary for survival. But Kix's antennae started twitching rapidly. As an insectoid, he could sense vibrations through the floor. There is something large moving in the building, he clicked in his translated voice. Very large. The sound of running footsteps echoed from the main corridor. Then screaming, not the kind of screaming from surprise or excitement, the kind that meant real terror. Professor Velthari's colors shifted to alarmed orange. She activated her communication device. Security? This is Classroom 7. What is the nature of the emergency? Static answered her. The footsteps in the corridor were getting closer now. Heavy, deliberate steps mixed with the sound of claws scraping against metal. And underneath it all, a low growling that seemed to vibrate through the walls. Most of the students were now standing and moving toward the exits. Their instincts told them to flee from unknown dangers. It was a smart survival strategy that had kept their species alive for millions of years. But the main door exploded inward before anyone could reach it. The thing that came through was a nightmare from the old galaxy. 9 feet tall, covered in armored scales that shifted from black to dark green. Arms that ended in claws longer than human fingers. A mouth full of teeth designed for tearing flesh. Eyes that burned with intelligence and hunger. Taemin recognized it from historical files. A ravager. One of the ancient hunter species that had terrorized the galaxy before disappearing thousands of years ago. Everyone thought they were extinct. Everyone was wrong. The creature stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the room like a predator choosing its prey. Its head moved with the fluid motion of something that had spent millions of years hunting other intelligent beings. Panic exploded through the classroom. The ethereal twins shattered like glass, their forms dissolving into sparkling dust as their fear overwhelmed their ability to maintain solid shape. Orm's containment suit began to leak as his gaseous body tried to escape in all directions at once. The insectoid students clicked and buzzed in terror, their compound eyes wide with primal fear. Professor Velthari backed against the wall, her crystalline body cycling through colors so fast it hurt to look at her. "Impossible," she whispered. "The Ravagers are extinct. They died out before the modern galactic civilization." The Ravager's mouth opened in what might have been a smile. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone. "Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated." Sora grabbed Taemin's arm. "We need to run now." But there was nowhere to run. The Ravager filled the doorway, blocking the main exit. The windows were reinforced and led to a 30-foot drop. The emergency exits were on the other side of the room, and the creature stood between them and safety. Students pressed against the walls, as far from the Ravager as they could get. Some were crying. Others had gone completely still with shock. A few were trying to call for help on their communication devices, but nothing was working. "How interesting," the Ravager said, its glowing eyes moving from student to student. "So many different species. So many different fears. This will be educational." It stepped further into the room, claws clicking against the floor. Each step was deliberate and slow, designed to build terror. Ravagers didn't just kill their prey. They liked to play with it first. "Let me see," the creature continued. "Ethereals dissolve when frightened. Gaseous beings lose cohesion. Insectoids freeze when confronted by larger predators. And humans, its eyes fixed on Taemin. Humans are supposed to be dangerous Deathworlders, but you look quite small and fragile to me." Every instinct Taemin had was screaming. His heart rate spiked. Adrenaline flooded his system. His muscles tensed for action. But unlike his classmates, he didn't freeze. He didn't try to run. Instead, he stepped forward. The movement was small, just one step, but it had a huge effect. The Ravager's head tilted, confused. Sora stared at him like he had lost his mind. Even the terrified students stopped crying for a moment. "Taemin," Hyunwoo whispered from across the room. "What are you doing?" "What I have to," Taemin replied. The Ravager laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "How refreshing. One of the prey wants to play. Very well, little human. Let's see what a Deathworlder can do against a true predator." It crouched slightly, preparing to spring. Muscles rippled under its armored hide. Claws extended to their full length. This was what it lived for. The hunt. The kill. The moment when hope turned to despair. But Taemin didn't look hopeless. He looked focused. His eyes swept the classroom, cataloging everything that could be used as a weapon or shield. The heavy wooden desk, the metal chair legs, the emergency fire extinguisher, mounted on the wall, the power cables running along the floor to the holographic projector. His brain, evolved from ancestors who had survived by outthinking predators that were bigger and stronger than they were, began calculating angles and distances and possibilities. The Ravager noticed his tactical assessment and seemed amused by it. "Planning your defense, little human. How adorable. Do you think your soft flesh and weak bones can stand against claws that have torn through starship hulls?" "No," Taemin said quietly. "But I don't have to win. I just have to give everyone else time to escape." And then he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a persistence hunter who had found his prey's weakness. The Ravager's amusement faded. Something about that smile triggered ancient warnings in its own predator, brain. The human wasn't acting like prey anymore. The Ravager moved first, launching itself across the classroom with terrifying speed. But Taemin was already moving too, diving to the side and rolling behind Professor Velthari's desk. The creature's claws raked deep gouges in the floor where he had been standing. Get to the emergency exits, Taemin shouted to his classmates. Move! Some of them started to run, but others were still frozen in terror. The Ravager spun toward the fleeing students, but Taemin grabbed a metal chair and hurled it at the creature's head. The chair bounced off harmlessly, but it got the Ravager's attention back. Eyes on me, Taemin said. I'm the one you want to fight. The creature's burning eyes focused on him again. You are brave for prey, but bravery will not save you. It charged again, claws extended. This time Taemin couldn't dodge completely. One claw caught his shoulder, tearing through his shirt and leaving 3 bloody lines across his skin. Pain flared, but he pushed it aside. Pain was just information. Information that he was still alive and still fighting. He grabbed the fire extinguisher from the wall and pulled the pin. White foam erupted from the nozzle, filling the Ravager's eyes and mouth. The creature roared and stumbled backward, clawing at its face. Taemin used the distraction to put more distance between himself and the Ravager. His shoulder burned, but his arm still worked. That was what mattered. More students were reaching the emergency exits now. Kix was helping the reformed ethereal twins who had managed to pull themselves back together. Orm had gotten his containment suit sealed and was floating toward safety, but Sora and Hyunwoo were still in the classroom, too scared to move. The Ravager cleared its eyes and fixed them on Taemin again. Clever, but tricks will only delay the inevitable. It was right, and Taemin knew it. He couldn't win this fight, through strength or speed. The Ravager was bigger, stronger, and had natural weapons that could cut through steel. But millions of years of evolution had given humans other advantages. Humans were tool users. And humans never gave up. Taemin grabbed a power cable and yanked it free from the wall. Sparks flew as the connection broke. The holographic projector died. But now he had a weapon that might actually hurt the creature. The Ravager saw what he was doing and laughed. You think electricity will stop me? My species survived in the void between stars. We are not so easily killed. Maybe not, but it would slow the creature down. And in a fight like this, every second mattered. Taemin feinted left, then dove right as the Ravager charged again. This time he managed to whip the live cable across the creature's arm. Electricity coursed through the Ravager's body, making its muscles spasm. It wasn't enough to cause real damage, but it was enough to make it stumble. That stumble gave Sora and Hyunwoo the opening they needed to run toward the exits. Go, Taemin yelled. Get security. Get help. But Sora stopped at the doorway. I'm not leaving you. Don't be stupid. This thing will kill all of us if... The Ravager's claws caught him across the back, sending him flying into the wall. Stars exploded across his vision as his head hit the hard surface. Blood ran down his spine from the new wounds. The creature stalked toward him, moving slowly now. It was enjoying this. Your friends have abandoned you, little human. Now you die alone. Taemin pushed himself up from the floor. His back felt like it was on fire, and his head was spinning. But he was still conscious, still fighting. Not alone, he said, spitting blood, and not giving up. Something in his voice made the Ravager pause. For millions of years, its species had been apex predators. They understood fear. They understood despair. They understood the moment when prey finally accepted that death was inevitable. But this human showed none of those things. Even bleeding, and injured, even outmatched in every way, he still radiated defiance. It was confusing. Prey wasn't supposed to act like this. Taemin used the creature's confusion to grab another weapon. This time it was a piece of broken chair, sharp where the metal had torn. Not much of a weapon against armored scales, but it was something. You don't understand, do you? Taemin said, circling away from the wall. Your species evolved to be perfect killers. You're stronger, faster, better armed than anything else in the galaxy. The Ravager nodded, pleased by the acknowledgement. But humans evolved differently, Taemin continued. We didn't evolve to be the strongest. We evolved to survive things stronger than us. He could hear voices in the corridor now. Security forces were finally responding. But they wouldn't get here in time to save him. This fight would be decided in the next few minutes. The Ravager seemed to realize this too. It stopped playing and prepared for a final attack. Enough talk. Time to end this. But as it tensed to spring, Taemin did something unexpected. He smiled again, the same predator smile that had unsettled the creature before. "You're right," he said. "Time to end this, but not the way you think." Behind the Ravager, Sora was still at the doorway. She had been quietly working on something while Taemin kept the creature distracted. Her fingers flew over her datapad, connecting to the Academy's systems. Hyunwoo had stayed too, despite Taemin's order to flee. The engineering student was at the environmental controls, waiting for Sora's signal. The Ravager didn't notice them. Its attention was completely focused on its primary prey. That was its mistake. Predators often focus so intently on one target that they miss threats from other directions. Humans had learned to exploit that weakness thousands of years ago. Pack, hunting, coordinated attacks, using tools and teamwork to bring down creatures much larger than themselves. Some things never changed. The Ravager lunged forward with killing intent, but Taemin was ready. He rolled under the creature's claws and came up behind it, jamming the broken chair leg into the gap between its armored scales. Black blood sprayed from the wound, and the Ravager howled in pain and rage. "Now!" Taemin shouted. Sora's fingers hit the final command on her datapad. Across the room, Hyunwoo slammed his hand down on the environmental controls. The classroom's gravity generators hummed to life, but not at their normal setting. The gravity field intensified to 3 times normal strength. Everyone in the room suddenly weighed 3 times more than they should. Taemin's knees buckled, but he had grown up on a high-gravity world. His bones and muscles were already adapted for this kind of stress. He could handle it, even if barely. The Ravager could not. The creature had evolved in the cold void between stars, where gravity was weak or non-existent. Its bones were hollow to save weight. Its muscles were designed for zero-gravity movement. Under normal conditions, it was incredibly fast and agile. Under 3 times Earth gravity, it was trapped. The Ravager crashed to the floor, its legs unable to support its suddenly massive weight. It tried to get up, but every movement was a struggle. Its claws scraped uselessly against the metal flooring as it fought to rise. "Impossible," it gasped. "How did you know?" Taemin leaned against the wall, breathing hard. The high gravity was exhausting even for him, but he could still move. Professor Velthari's lecture. She said different species adapt to different environments. You adapted for zero gravity. We adapted for high gravity. The security forces finally arrived, but they stopped at the doorway in shock. The legendary Ravager, terror of the ancient galaxy, was pinned to the floor like an insect under glass. Security Chief Grix, a large reptilian with thick scales and powerful muscles, stared in disbelief. "How did you defeat it?" "I didn't defeat it," Taemin said, sliding down the wall to sit on the floor. "We defeated it. Humans don't hunt alone." Sora and Hyunwoo carefully made their way over to him, moving slowly under the increased gravity. Both of them looked pale and shaky, but they were alive. "Are you okay?" Sora asked, looking at the blood on his shoulder and back. "I'll live. Humans heal fast." He managed a tired smile. "Thanks for staying. I couldn't have done it without you." "Of course we stayed," Hyunwoo said. "You're our friend. Humans protect each other, right?" The Ravager tried one more time to get up, but the gravity was too much. It collapsed back to the floor, breathing heavily. "This is not possible. My species ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. We are perfect predators." "Maybe," Taemin said, "but perfect predators don't need to adapt. They just dominate until something changes, then they die out." Chief Grix was coordinating with his security team to set up containment fields around the Ravager. The creature was no longer a threat, but they weren't taking any chances. "How did it get into the academy?" Sora asked. "Good question," Chief Grix rumbled. "Our sensors should have detected it the moment it entered the system. Ravagers are supposed to be extinct." "Maybe they're not as extinct as everyone thought," Taemin said. "And maybe they've been learning too, studying galactic civilization, planning their return." The idea sent chills through everyone in the room. If the Ravagers were back and if they had been hiding and watching for decades, what did that mean for the peaceful galactic community? Professor Velthari finally spoke up from her corner. Her crystalline body was still flickering with stress, but she was stable enough to talk. We must contact the Galactic Council immediately. If the Ravagers have returned, every world is in danger. Not every world, Taemin said quietly. Just the garden worlds. The places where people evolved without predators. The safe places. He struggled to his feet, still fighting against the increased gravity. The death worlds will be fine. We know how to fight monsters. Chief Grix looked at him with new respect. Is it true what they say about humans? That you never give up? Taemin shrugged. We can't afford to. On Earth, everything wants to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. If humans gave up every time something tried to kill them, we would have gone extinct a million years ago. And now you're here to protect the rest of us, Sora said. We're not protectors, Taemin replied. We're just too stubborn to die quietly. The Ravager on the floor made a sound that might have been laughter. Stubborn prey. How unexpected. My kind will remember this when we return in force. Good, Taemin said. Tell them that Earth remembers too. Tell them that humans don't forget when someone threatens their friends. The creature's eyes narrowed. You think your little world can stand against the might of the Ravager fleets? I think you're about to find out why humans are called Deathworlders. Medical. Teams arrived and began treating the wounded students. Most of the injuries were minor, caused by panic rather than the Ravager's attack. The creature had been focused on playing with its prey rather than killing efficiently. That had been its mistake. As the medics worked on his wounds, Taemin thought about what Professor Velthari had said in her lecture. Evolution shaped all life. Each world presented challenges. Life found ways to survive. The Ravagers had evolved to be perfect killers in their environment, but they had never faced prey that fought back with tools and teamwork and stubborn determination. They were about to get an education in human persistence hunting. 3 hours later, the academy was full of important people. Galactic Council representatives, military officers, and scientists all wanted to know how 3 human students had captured a legendary Ravager. Taemin sat in the medical center, his wounds bandaged and treated. Human healing technology had fixed most of the damage, but he was still sore. Sora and Hyunwoo sat with him, equally tired but uninjured. The door opened and a woman in a military uniform walked in. She was tall and confident, with the bearing of someone used to command. The name tag on her uniform read, Admiral Choi. Students, she said with a slight bow. I am Admiral Sujin Choi, Human Defense Fleet. I came as soon as we received the alert. Human Defense Fleet? Sora asked. I thought humans were just part of the regular Galactic Navy. Admiral Choi smiled grimly. Things are changing rapidly. The Galactic Council has asked Earth to take a more active role in defense matters. It seems our Deathworlder training is suddenly very valuable. She pulled up a chair and sat down across from them. Tell me exactly what happened here. Taemin went through the events step by step. The Admiral listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on her datapad. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You used gravity as a weapon, she finally said. That's not something they teach in standard combat courses. It wasn't really a weapon, Taemin replied. It was just using what we knew about biology. The professor had been talking about how different species adapt to different environments. And you realized that a zero-gravity predator would be helpless in high gravity. We realized it was worth trying. We didn't have many other options. Admiral, Choi looked at Sora and Hyunwoo. And you two stayed to help despite the danger. Of course, Hyunwoo said. Taemin is our friend. We don't abandon friends. Even when facing certain death? Especially then, Sora added. That's what friends do. The Admiral smiled, but it was a sad smile. The rest of the galaxy is having trouble understanding that concept. Most species value individual survival above group loyalty. They can't comprehend why humans would risk themselves for others. She stood up and walked to the window. looking out at the peaceful academy grounds. Dr. Young will be here soon. She's our best xenopsychologist. The council wants her to study human behavior, patterns, and see if they can be taught to other species. Can they be? Taman asked. I don't know. Courage isn't something you learn in a classroom. It's something you develop over millions of years of evolution. The door chimed and another person entered. This was an older woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She wore civilian clothes and carried a medical scanner. Dr. Haiwan Jung, she introduced herself. I study how different species think and behave. Admiral Choi asked me to speak with you. She sat down and activated her scanner. Don't worry, this is just checking for psychological trauma. Fighting for your life can leave mental scars. The scanner beeped and showed green lights. Dr. Young looked surprised. Interesting. Your stress levels are already returning to normal. Most beings would be traumatized for weeks after an encounter like that. It wasn't fun, Taman admitted. But we're alive. Our friends are safe. That's what matters. Yes, but how do you process the fact that you nearly died? That you were in mortal danger? Taman thought about it. I guess we're used to the idea that everything is dangerous. On Earth, you can die from a spider bite or eating the wrong plant. Danger is just part of life. Dr. Young made more notes. And the protective instinct? The need to defend others even at personal risk? Someone had to, Sora said. If we all ran away, the Ravager would have killed everyone. But why did it have to be you? Why not let someone else take the risk? The three humans looked at each other, confused by the question. Because there wasn't anyone else, Yunwu said. It was our classroom, our friends, our responsibility. Dr. Young put down her scanner and leaned back in her chair. That's what I don't think other species understand. Humans don't see protecting others as heroic. You see it as necessary. Admiral Choi turned from the window. Which brings us to why I'm really here. The Galactic Council has made a formal request. They want humans to establish training programs for other species. Teach them how to fight, how to survive, how to protect each other. Is that a good idea? Taman asked. I mean, most species evolve to be peaceful. Fighting doesn't come naturally to them. No. But the Ravager attack proves that the galaxy isn't as safe as everyone thought. We need to be ready for threats. Dr. Young nodded. The preliminary report suggests this wasn't a random attack. The creature spoke of returning in force. That implies there are more of them out there. How many more? Sora asked. Unknown. Ravagers were thought extinct for over 3,000 years. They could have been hiding anywhere in the galaxy, building their numbers. Admiral Choi activated a holographic display. This is why Earth is forming the Deathworlder protocol. Humans will work with other species to develop defense strategies. We'll establish training centers on worlds throughout the galaxy. Training them to be like us? Taman asked. Training them to survive like you, the Admiral corrected. We can't change their evolution, but we can teach them to work together, to use tools, to never give up. The hologram showed academy designs, training programs, and integration schedules. It was an ambitious plan that would take years to implement. The first training center will be established here on Serenitas Prime, Admiral Choi continued. The Academy's students have volunteered to be the first participants. Even after what happened? Hyunwoo asked. Especially after what happened. They saw what humans could do when cornered. They want to learn, Dr. Young smiled. Your classmate Kix has been telling everyone that humans are persistence predators who never stop caring. I think that's become our unofficial motto. Taman laughed despite everything. Could be worse mottos. The point is, Admiral Choi said, you've started something here. A change in how the galaxy thinks about survival and protection. We just did what we had to do, Sora said. And that's exactly why it worked. The Admiral stood to leave. Get some rest. Tomorrow you start training your classmates how to fight monsters. After the officials left, the three friends sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside the window, they could see students returning to their dormitories. Life at the academy was slowly returning to normal. Do you think we can really teach them? Sora asked. Teach them what? Taemin replied. How to be brave, how to protect each other. Taemin looked at his friends. I think they already know how. They just need to remember that sometimes not giving up is the most important thing you can do. The peaceful world of Serenitas Prime continued its slow rotation around its gentle sun. But something had changed. The galaxy was no longer a safe place where nothing dangerous ever happened, and for the first time in thousands of years, that might be exactly what it needed.